What happens when YouTube's sharpest film analysts meet the internet's most determined cat animators? You get the crossover you didn't know you needed. Every Frame of Painting and Lackadaisy. This is the talk that reminds you why you fell in love with making things in the first place and why you should never stop.
Hi, my name is Tony.
And my name is Talor.
We are the co-creators of a series called Every Frame of Painting, and we are here to help present spooky stories for Eat Your Peas, which is run by our friend Lindsay. And we are here today with Fable Siegel and Tracy Butler from Lackadaisy. Please say hello, folks.
Hey, hi, I can tell you the horrors of our business and business model.
How to make a cartoon and not die.
How to survive.
How to survive burnout for years and years and years on a passion project where you're like, right. I'm not quitting, but boy, do I ever want to lie down and sleep for a month.
In that spirit, I wanted to ask just very simply about a sequence that, Tracy, you started a very long time ago, to my understanding, and it is 3 words for you, which is Old Man River.
Yeah.
So I had to fight her on getting that into the pilot. I was like, this is Lackadaisy to me, and I want this pilot to start with a poem just to like sort of right off the bat put off people who aren't gonna like it anyway.
Okay, so Tracy, I have to ask, what inspired this poem? Because when I initially saw Old Man River, I was like, oh, is it gonna be the song from like I think it's Showboat? But it's not. It's I think it's an original poem. So can you explain its genesis?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at lore about the Mississippi River and things like that, and I think Old Man River as a nickname, it just seemed like an odd name for the river to me. And you know, at the same time, I was writing this character who's very much this like troubadour. He thinks of himself like a warrior poet or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know, these things just kind of came together, and I am continually like disappointed in my panel layout for the original comic for this. But I think the poem itself is pretty okay. I'm not a poet, but Rocky is, so I'll blame it on him. But
this is her excuse. Like she is in fact incredible with words. Remember for the pilot, like we had I was like, hey Tracy, we need a poem for this dynamite scene. And we were coming up with ideas, like sitting there, and then finally you were like, I just need just give me a night.
Yeah, we needed some Rocky to be saying something while he was tossing dynamite around, because heaven knows he can't shut his mouth. So so we came up with another poem for the pilot that he does as well. But I think this one I feel like just kind of captures almost more of Rocky than it does his environment, more of his like very quixotic, perspective on things.
Looking back at this one, because I hadn't seen this in a few years and I was checking it up again, my first sort of feeling about it was that it does capture his romanticized view of the thing and what it is that he does and all that. I do have to ask, all the research in this, I'm assuming, is that like based on a real bridge, all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's the Eads Bridge in St. Louis. I think it's been there since the mid-late 1800s. Yeah, so it was actually the symbol of St. Louis before
the arch.
Before the arch, yeah, and this was actually a architectural marvel at the time. This
it's still pretty cool. Like if you go and check it out, like you can walk it.
Yeah, it's just a really cool place. We actually went out there. I had some of the crew come out around the time we started working on the season 1 material, and we all like toured and walked all through there and recorded some sound on the inside when the metro runs through there. There's like a rail. So
I'd love to just circle back to something that Fable brought up. So Lackadaisy is a webcomic. It became a book. It was a short film, and now it's a series. And those are all very distinct, different
animals. Yeah.
Animals. So just taking this particular sequence, the Old Man River sequence, from webcomic to short film, what are you changing? Like, what are you keeping? Why? What are those types of choices being made?
I think in part you're considering the audience. When you're doing a comic or a web comic, your audience goes in expecting to do some reading and that sort of thing along with the visuals. With a cartoon, I feel like it's a much more accessible thing, and you get maybe a much younger audience that's maybe not into reading comics. I don't think you want to necessarily bombard them with that much verbiage, like right at the start. And that's what we decided we were going to do, for better or worse. And, we had some of our board artists and things going like, I don't know, maybe you should cut the poem in half, and like maybe reconsider.
I was just like, I feel strongly about this. Instead, I want to find ways of making it even more interesting.
So Fable wanted to do it, and I was like, well, I think it's a good intro to just kind of explain Rocky's character a little bit, and we got pretty far into production, and then we looped back around. We're like, if we're doing this poem at the beginning, we'd already even recorded the audio for it, and we were just gonna kind of deal with it matter-of-factly in the way that the comic does.
Yeah, there was going to be just a straightforward version, but
there's no visual abstraction. But I decided, like, if we're gonna do this, the visuals have to keep people's interest if the poem isn't going to. And so I wanted the visuals to really match what was going on in the poem, even if the poem was just like flying over people's heads and they didn't understand what it meant or what it was. At least the visuals would communicate the same feel.
And the advantage of starting like taking a second look at it, like, so late in the process of making the pilot, where sort of like the order of production really had this bit being worked on the most towards the end. We got really warmed up into the pilot though, like working together and like our familiarity with all the characters and like how they speak and cadences. And so taking a second look at it and doing that, like, while, as we were like more warmed up and more familiar with everything, and our cast was and our crew was.
Yeah. When you're like just starting on something like this, and like the first thing you produce is going to be a little rough around the edges because you're just not used to your own pipeline yet. And so doing it kind of later in the production process, I think saved it from being more of a disaster. Like
you start stronger basically that way. So
right.
Like I think we had at least like 3 different recordings of the poem.
We did. Michael Kovac was a good sport about recording this numerous times for us.
There's so many words he did not know. He's like, I don't know how to pronounce that. So it's very funny when people ask him to riff as Rocky or do poetry, and he's like, I'm not the writer.
Definitely set him up for it.
The process you just described is something I've experienced on almost every show I've cut animatics on, which is basically we start production and we're on episode 104, then we do 104 to like 113, and at the end we do 1, 2, and 3, and then every time I watch like a Netflix series and I'm like, quality for the first 3 episodes and quality on episode 4, and I was like,
I feel like
you can
you can kind of tell, did they start on episode 1 or did they loop back around and do episode 1 after doing some other mid-season stuff, because you want to put your best foot forward right at the starting gate. And you just can't do that when you're just learning your own, you're just getting used to the process. Everybody's getting a handle on the art style and the approach and everything. And so it helps to not do the first part of your thing first. So we wanted to make sure that we got, we captured people with at least the visuals, if nothing else. And the poem would come and be an extra, bonus if they were sitting there actually trying to decipher what Rocky was even talking about here, in which he's just basically complaining about the name of the river being Old Man River.
He's like, oh, Man River, what a crappy name. You don't deserve that name. You're way more interesting than that.
What considerations were you taking into account with regards to, like, Old Man River is from the comic, but then the next sort of section, like the rest of it is to some degree like a standalone thing that is completely outside the like non-canonical. There are bits from the comic sprinkled in throughout, but the entire rest, like what considerations did you take into when you're like, oh, it's 22 minutes long and it's going to be all new?
Right. Yeah. Well, so we knew that probably most of the people who would be watching it would not have seen or read the comic at all. And so we wanted to make sure that we, explain some things up front. It's, as Fable often puts it, it's like the sampler platter of what Lackadaisy is. It's never meant to be.
It's not a traditional pilot episode. It's really a way of wetting your whistle on the story so that you're interested enough to ask questions and want more and maybe seek it out. Yeah.
This was interesting. You mentioned that it differed from a traditional pilot, and it was more of a sampler platter. Sorry, I can say words. What would you consider a traditional pilot, and how that functions versus what this is and how this functions?
A traditional pilot is an episode 1 usually, where you're going to continue a story afterwards, and this certainly could have done that, but we kind of like breathlessly introduced all of these characters in this character conflict without really explaining anything. And so we felt like we had to kind of just like encapsulate all of that, the time and place and the characters and their conflict, and kind of like get that all in one thing. And so that was kind of what we were writing.
It was also like adapting from the comic. Like if we had done like a straightforward adaptation of the comic, that would have encountered some issues where, namely, like some major antagonists aren't really introduced inside of like those first few chapters for it to like establish what the greater conflict was. So we had to write something that was wholly original that would kind of get to the point a little quicker, where, okay, we have the two main forces like that are the most active typically in the narrative, like coming together and really showing those off and showing like examples of what to expect from the wider story. So car chase sequences, poetry, music, Seraphine like blasting that bar and giggling like
yeah, we really wanted to
Mordecai
capture
being a bit bitchy, you know.
Right. All of those elements of like the jazz music, the confluence of that, the rum running and alcohol bootlegging and the gangster conflict, and kind of get and Rocky's bizarre theater kid behavior, and kind of get that all like, you know, it's kind of like
like implosions, you know, all those things like take a while to build up in the original narrative. And we basically had to present them like as quickly as possible and as organically as possible. And so it required like its own unique script.
But I did just want to ask one last sort of general question about this whole section. We worked in animation. She's worked as an animator. I've worked as an animatic editor. And one thing that we always try to explain to people like outside the medium is on a good production, the additive nature of animation, in the sense that the classic word we all use is plus. Like, are you plussing up the scene? Are you plussing this in every way, shape, or form? And the idea that the department adds on to what the previous department did, and so on and so forth. So I'm just curious for this opening section, because we have the comic to actually compare it to, the things that's striking me immediately: the background, the moon, which scaled up approximately 900 times from its comic version, and also the effects. And I'm super curious, at what stage was the violin added?
I think we started even talking about like, should this maybe be a song instead of a poem? And it was like, it doesn't really work as a song. So if we're going to do a song, we got to write something else. And so we were like, well, how do we bridge those two things? And like, really, like, Rocky's so like musician is really at the core of him. Like, artist is really at the core of him. And he's basically a jazz musician trying to be a gangster because of his circumstances. Violin is kind of like the expression of spirit and soul for him.
It's so core to his character.
You know, it's something you can do when you have this audio visual medium that you can't really do. Like, I could draw him with a violin.
There's fun analogies too. I mean, it's like, it's all hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, you know, the cow jumped over the moon. We got all that going on there. So it's what it adds to the appeal, basically.
It felt like a certain kind of like iconography that felt familiar, even though we're using it in a context that doesn't match up with anything. But yeah, cat, like a grinning cat with a fiddle and the moon and everything. It was just like, yeah, that's just that seems like the right thing here. So
we wanted to establish like the theme of the moon very early on, because like Rocky himself is very crescent shapes is a very dominant part of his shape language. The other thing that's going on here is that since most of it is a chase sequence, we need to have a way of like creating a landmark. So like the opening sequence very firmly drives the idea that there's this bridge where they're starting. Off in the distance is the city. In the direction of the city is the moon. You see the moon over and over and over and over again here, right over the city. So as the car chase sequence is happening, we're both trying to keep the screen direction really firm, where you have a sense of, okay, if he's going over here and that as they're chasing, he's going over here. The challenge with this kind of stuff is like keeping screen direction clear so that you always know where the characters are going when they have a firm direction that they need to head towards.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people would have like consciously paid attention to that, but hopefully.
I haven't seen anybody pick up on it yet, but it's funny what gets understood in the subconscious.
Every now and then, yeah.
Yeah.
Someone really hones in on something you were really trying to communicate and in an unspoken way, and it's like, yes, that's exactly what we were going for, and that's really rewarding.
You might notice, I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but if you rewind and that scene where you see the bridge, Rocky is super distracted with his poetry nonsense. A car drives by. That's the
I know exactly the scene that you're talking about.
He has failed at his job. Yeah. Look out.
Ivy was right. He should have been paying attention. He would have told them, hey, a car just drove by, guys. Maybe we should like pick it up or something. Any visual detail in this, like, it's all very deliberate. Like,
I mean, I think more than any medium, maybe like every little thing going on in the frame is very, very deliberate in animation. Like you have to pre-plan everything so meticulously. you're
because
not like
it's all artificial. Like there's nothing that's in there by accident.
it's like the editing
somebody had to be
happens.
thinking.
Editing happens before the work goes in, whereas with filmmaking generally you film it and then edit, or you
Unless you're
storyboard
us.
it and then film it and then you edit. Okay, well you do it the other way. Okay,
Yeah.
so you make
No, but
things
that's-
more
but
like an
that's-
animator would make it than
Yeah.
Yeah, more or less.
But that's the job. Like at the end of the day, that's the job. You are telling a story. Telling a story is about knowing when to reveal information, like when and where. And then as directors and when you are making stuff visually, where do you direct people's attention? And how do you reveal that information? And where do you, what sounds are you using? What cues are you using? How are you situating people into the story, whether it's extremely obvious, like literally a character saying something, or it's as subtle as the moon is here. Use that as your visual landmark. And it all built like that's the job.
Also, I would say like the other thing that just strikes me as always whenever like working on this is the degree to which if you work on animation, you could be working on the same scene for like a year. So if you're going to work like on that for a year, you're going to think about it a lot. I had met Phil Niblink once. He was the director of Fable Goes West, but he did the shot in Great Mouse Detective where Ratigan runs up the clocks.
The clock.
Oh,
yeah.
And he
Oh,
had to
that was
print-
fantastic. I was like,
Yeah.
We pulled a lot from that early Xerox era Disney for like a lot of visual inspiration. Great Mouse Detective did amazing work with early CG. Just amazing work. It laid the groundwork for the renaissance of the 90s, really. So
He would appreciate hearing that because he told me he was just like that one scene of Ratigan running up the clocks. That was a year and a month of my life.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just-
Well,
every
among
single thing that
animators,
he
at least,
printed.
it's
Yeah.
a well-known scene. Like I think that actually, while we were working on production, we went and watched a few different animated films that had inspired us. We went and watched that again, and yeah, I mean that whole clock, the whole Big Ben sequence is really just stunning and
Still impressive, honestly.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
it's-
it holds
it's
up.
Like
absolutely.
nobody's like floating around or anything. It's composited together like really solidly. The tone of everything, it's still foreboding and honestly really
It
like,
was a better
scary.
integration of
Yeah.
3D than a lot of like movies that came after did, where
Yeah.
it was like the disparity between the art style was just a little bit jarring. Like this, it wasn't.
I feel like one of the things that he would say is like the fact that it took so long just to print the paper that had the stupid 3D asset on it that it was just like, you better get this dumb thing right. And so I do think that's another thing where it's like, oh my God, it's just like, it's going to take forever to do.
Yeah, you do
Yeah.
get that
Also-
kind of that feeling is like, oh, this has to work because it's stuck in cost fallacy at a certain
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Because you're like, this better work because I've spent too much time.
Yep. Those of us who grew up on those like darker 90s,
Yeah.
late 80s animated features where things got a little grim compared to, I think, modern cartoons that try to keep everything very positive and
Cats
Um,
don't dance.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
but I
we
love
like
Cats
Cats Don't
Don't
Dance,
Dance.
too.
I love
Actually,
Cats
that's
Don't
kind of grim if you
but
think about it.
it
Yeah.
does have some dark moments. It definitely has that
Darla Dimple's a great villain. I like
She is. She's amazing.
Yeah.
it has
and I
that
love
Sunset
Max.
Boulevard like undertone to it.
Yes.
Oh,
like
yeah.
with and
What's
with
the guy's
Max
name?
and
Was like Max,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like it seems like it's an allusion, a direct allusion to Sunset Boulevard,
no,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That-
no, I mean like in Secret of Nimh and like the rescuers and stuff, where it's like child kidnapping and child abduction and smart rat people like, murdering each other with swords and
Yeah.
like and the politics of that. Yeah, and it's like so grungy and it's got so much texture and depth that
Yeah.
like we really
It's
wanted
like-
to.
grittier because it's literally visually grittier. And so that's what we're going for. So, I mean, there's aesthetic, like we just like to draw that way, but it's also a deliberate choice.
I'm going to segue into a couple other set of questions, and that is, what does a day look like when you clock in for a
We're
virtual
never not
studio
logged
like
in.
this?
Another
Yeah,
horse,
we're
right?
pretty much Fable and I throughout production on the pilot and every other short thing we've done and on season 1 and things, we basically are in a voice chat channel all day long, every day. Kind of just like, even if we're working on our own thing and just quietly have our heads down, we're there because the crew will pop in and out, needing notes and direction.
It's a way of kind of expressing in a virtual environment. My office door is open,
Mhm.
and then if I want to say my office door is closed, I just deafen myself, or I can
Yeah.
pop off. But
Or-
it's,
yeah. or Fable and I are scheming together about, how we're going to handle this or that thing creatively, or.
Or we're having midnight therapy sessions and going like, oh God,
Well,
oh God,
yeah,
as the
during
weight of
COVID,
everything comes crashing down.
Yeah, well, there's definitely been enough turmoil in the world and stuff that we've, done our fair share of
Yeah, it's
venting in
impacted
those.
us same as other people. Like we're aware, but
Yeah, but we we have our meetings in those voice channels. We'll share our screens and be like, sometimes the notes are happening real time, or it's like, just drawing over somebody's work, and sometimes Fable would just be, doing notes and then handing them out later on.
A big reason why we were able to do this is that a lot of things came together that made it possible, like Toon Boom being industry standard software at a price point that we could get licenses for everybody. Discord being like a communication tool, so we could talk to people constantly.
Virtual studio.
Show work. File management software where I could say have a Dropbox and put a bunch of files on there, and then we could share those giant files with other people. But we were able to achieve something akin to the studio environment by working inside a Discord and people talking together and sharing their work. It really built a sense of camaraderie. And also you understood your shot in the context of other people's shots. So it helped people like think of their work as being part of a greater whole instead of I just got to get this one thing done.
Do you do dailies?
We did do multiples a week meetings where it was kind of like dailies, but we asked them to like by the end of the day, if you could just post where things are at.
Right.
Yeah.
So even if somebody didn't have any progress on their shot, they would just say, haven't gotten to this one yet. And so every shot would have its own thread, in the Discord chat. The production manager could go in and check each one and see,
Oh God, another horror story. Originally, we didn't have a production manager because since the scope got bigger, and eventually it was like
nobody else is going to see the faces that we just pulled.
Yeah, we didn't have.
The immediate reaction to that was like, oh no.
Right.
We've been there. We've been there. We know. We've done that. We've done that problem.
Yeah, we. Everybody was wearing all the hats, and Fable in particular was chasing down, animators going like, where's your shot, they have deadline for this, where's that, and it's like the director can't be doing that every single day.
And to be empathetic, it's like, again, height of COVID, all these people are going through it, and you're trying to like track down a shot and make sure that they're turning stuff in, and if they can't, like that somebody else is able to pick it up. So I was like, it's like herding cats and exhausting, just very exhausting.
I came from the game industry where we've been through this kind of, production management. If it goes awry, everything goes awry, and or if it just isn't there, it's always a management problem. And so we went to Spike, who was then our executive producer at Iron Circus, and we're like, we need to hire somebody to help Fable. There's just no way Fable can continue doing all of this and directing, and
it's going to get done, and it's going to be fucking amazing because it's going to supply all of this.
We learned the hard way just how important that infrastructure is, and just like we didn't go in not knowing that management and accounting and all this other stuff needed to be done. We just thought, I'll do it.
You think you can do it,
and also I'll be the art director, and also I'll paint backgrounds, and also I'll do all the character design, and also it's like.
We're so appreciative, like the people who became inspired by the project, and they were like, I want to be a part of that sincerely, not just because it looks good on my resume, but because I want to see this get made. I think it's pretty cool. And they're endeared to it. And it feels really good to work with people who are all kind of pulling in the same direction. So like, even as things get hard, which it does, and inevitably gets difficult, like it's kind of the job, is that it's constant problem solving. Yeah. You at least can trust that everybody is trying to get there. Like they're trying to get this made. They're trying to make sure that things are secure and stable, and eventually people get to see this thing, and you get to enjoy it too.
This is the sort of story time experience, at least for us. We're sort of curious if you folks had this experience. So basically, I forget, 2017 we got reached out to, and more or less was like, hey, you've been doing this thing on YouTube. Do you want to do essentially a version of it for Netflix? And we were like, sure. We went into it, and our initial reaction to it was, well, it's a 2-person process. So now we have the resources and they'll give us more people. So what we'll do is we'll think, okay, the 2-person process, let's find a way to scale it up to like 40, 45 people.
Oh boy. Yeah.
We basically started for like the small go up. So basically, if we don't need a person, we don't add them to the crew. We'll just take care of it.
We very quickly learned that was the incorrect choice.
Trial by fire on that one. Like,
yeah,
genuinely,
but basically our we hired our producer, who we have multiple times said to him, we don't know where we would be without you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically was like, hey, I know you guys worked in studios. Instead of taking a 2-person process and trying to scale it up to what it's going to need to be, why don't you take that 300-person process you guys already know and scale it down?
Yeah.
And we were like,
that was significantly smarter advice.
No matter how many times I've done this to myself, and I've done it in the game industry, I've done it in working on a comic, I've done it on this project with animation, I always way overestimate how much energy and I'm going to be able to put into something. And like, you just, it's like, oh, I can juggle that and I can juggle that. And yeah, just give that task to me. I'll do that. And then, then you end up having a kind of a mini breakdown because you're like, oh no.
Yeah, it's like the energy that you are used to expending on things like this, when you are working on team projects, you're used to like just doing your part. And so like throwing that much of yourself in there is not wise in the first place, but it's more doable because you're responsible for your chunk. But the more you end up in like these management positions, if you start behaving that way, there's 2 problems. One, stuff will slip and it will be your fault. And that means
become
that
a bottleneck for other people. Yeah. Yeah.
And the other problem is that inevitably people will look to you as like an example of how to behave, and they'll do the same thing. And then you'll see them do the same thing. You're like, oh, no, don't do that. And you realize,
it's like,
I can't do this to myself because I'm a bad example.
Right. It's like, oh, Fable and Tracy are working on the weekend. Should I be working on the weekend? And we're like, no. And
it's the definition of basically what it means to be a leader. Like, it's the thing, like if you do the things, even if you go like, don't do what I'm doing, they will do it.
Yeah, do as I say,
like
not
as I
do.
And but they'll be like, oh, but I see them doing it anyway.
You set the pace, basically. Yeah. The current culture of like hustle grind mindset, that kind of thing, where you have like CEOs going, yeah, I hardly ever sleep. I get up at like 5 a.m. and then I don't go to bed until like 2 a.m. What they're communicating is they expect their employees to behave the same way. And that's actually not good, because after 40 hours in a week, you're really not going to get that much work out of any given artist. Like the more you ask out of them, like the more hours you tell them to pour into something, what you're doing is you're just creating a situation where it's the same amount of work, but it's just stretched out longer with more mistakes.
I would also argue that it harms the ability to move forward as artists, because you need
downtime.
Not even just downtime, but we made an episode about Chuck Jones, and he talked about where he found inspiration from. And he said from everywhere. He reads all these books, he goes to opera, he does this, and that's where ideas come from. Yeah. And if you don't have any time to do that,
art doesn't
I appreciate what you guys do, actually, because it's always a good like sit down and look at what somebody's taken out of that downtime and expressing to their audience. Here's what I learned from this. I enjoy examining like your observations, and like also I just appreciate the art form of communication in general. So it's like it's a different genre, but you guys are doing a good job of kind of like feeding folks like us, having us realize, yes, if you put in the effort, someone will notice. Yeah.
So what you're saying, it's like if art comes from, in some ways it's a mirror or a reflection or an abstraction of your lived experience or an interpretation of that. And so if you aren't living, you aren't going out and having relationships and adventures and seeing things and doing things, then
what are you going to draw from then?
Where is that art coming from?
Yeah. Did you ever see that interview with Miyazaki where he was talking to
he's talking to a bunch of animators.
And he's like, for Spirited Away, and he's like, have you ever seen like a snake drop from a tree? And they're like, no.
No, very specifically, he's like, it was the scene where Chihiro has to feed Haku the medicine, and he doesn't want to eat it. And he's like, it's like when you have your dog sick and you have to shove your arm in there and just stick the food past the palate.
Have you ever had to wrestle a chicken?
Yeah. And he's genuinely just like, has anyone here ever had a pet dog? And you just see all these young animators like, no.
And they're like,
and he's just like, what's the point?
But yeah, like that's where you draw those things from. And if you're just constantly burning yourself out and you're constantly working, I'm not saying like, oh, you're ruining yourself.
You're limiting what you can bring to the art.
You're not feeding yourself. You're starving yourself. You're like,
you're
go
only
out
hurting
a little.
yourself.
Yeah.
You're only hurting yourself in the long run.
We a lot of the people that we hired on the production were former or even sometimes current Warriors Cats multi-animator project animators. Like they have been doing like cool animated projects with like other kids for like years. And so they were very used to animating cats and observing cat body language and behavior. And, you know, they love to draw cats. They love their own cats. And so when you ask them, hey, work on this project with all these cat characters, you didn't have to explain cat body language to them because they just inherently.
To some people, though, we did have to, and that was almost surprising.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you don't know cats. Oh, okay, so
you haven't had a
their
cat
tails don't
before.
work like a dog tail. It's way more prehensile, and like trying to explain all the ways a cat tail does things and what it means and stuff, and their ears.
What their ears do, like why the fur goes a certain way, and so.
Yeah.
The feline nature of the characters becomes another way of expressing them. It's like their thought bubble effectively, and you hire people who know that. And so this is another way in which like your lived experience really matters to your job. It was a
requirement that we expect everybody to like fully understand.
It always adds. It doesn't subtract. Like go out and do things. Like you got to pull from something. And you never know what's gonna like follow you through your job.
This is so important that the major studios pay for their employees to do this.
Yes.
Just if you go back and you look at the money that Disney spends on sending their crew to wherever to look at the stuff and to see.
Or bringing animals in for them to draw. It's that sort of like, you know, you get stuck whether it's writing or drawing or something. It's like just take a walk, just like walk away from your workstation for a minute, even if it's just for an hour, and then come back with a different perspective on everything, a rejuvenated
stuff like
perspective.
That is one reason why I
take your weekend off, you know, for crying out loud.
It's like stuff like that is one reason why it's like I'm super in favor of like public spaces where people can just appreciate something without having to burn money on it. But that was also one of the big challenges of working on this during the height of COVID, because we couldn't get out. We couldn't get out of our homes. Is like, what were you going to do? Like, in a way, like the project was keeping us sane just because there was something to focus on other than your own misery. Just listening to people talk was often like my way of kind of dealing just like what their problems were and gaining some perspective on like what everybody was going through and realizing how much we all shared in common no matter where we were living.
A lot of animation production is like, you know, cloistered off. Like one team is very separate from another. Like your voice actors generally don't ever meet the animators and things like that.
Backgrounds and animators don't meet. Storyboarders don't
because
meet,
we had this like virtual social space. Like everybody was just hanging out with everybody, and you could peek in at what other people were doing. Like the voice actors could like look at the character designs, they could look at the animation roughs, and they could just go like, "Oh, that's awesome," you know. And it's just like it was very uplifting, and it created the sense of camaraderie, I think, that a lot of maybe productions don't have when you just don't really have that social connection to all these people. Like there's the people you maybe are working with in the direct office space near you or in cubicles near you. But
I think you know, in our business, like a lot of the fear that, oh, well, this information will get out or whatever, anything like that, like really runs counter to a lot of the spirit of media like this, where the collaborative nature is just so essential. And like the more you kind of open up areas where people can at least observe from each other, there's like so much benefit to that, because it ends up inspiring them in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise taken. Like they see someone else's shot, they're like, I have an idea now for how to handle this. I really love what you did there. I want to take that quirk, bring it into my own work. I actually had to, early on, I didn't realize that people would do this, but early on I had to tell people, do not animate on ones. Everybody else will try to animate on ones to keep up with you. You will make cleanup cry. It will be a nightmare for so many people because you got ambitious. Don't do it. There's plenty of work to do. Don't like blow all your energy on this one shot.
The young artists, they come in full of enthusiasm. Like that was why you had to tell them not to animate on ones, because they want to flex. They really want.
I'm like, you're going to destroy yourself. Like, please. It's the Husky team that wants to just go.
Yeah, what you don't want to do is injure them and burn them out and, you know, make them cynical. And
I want to keep working with them 10 years from now. You know? I can't do that if I hurt people.
Yeah.
I actually want to tag on to that because the thing
Yeah.
I keep thinking about is the sort of
Is it institutional knowledge?
son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way too long. We
That's
talk about
my
this all the
greatest
time.
fear
We
is
talk
the
about
loss of
this.
institutional knowledge.
Well, your greatest fear has unfortunately come to pass. Yeah, it's. I think it's a constant like chorus among us. The idea that institutional knowledge gets dropped because the expensive animator who's a lead or a supervisor and is absolutely amazing and has 25 plus years of experience is more expensive than a couple of juniors who just graduated.
Yeah, and some bean counter is just like, oh well, this guy's more expensive, so we can just get rid of him. It's like, no, that guy saves you money.
Yeah, like
and
it's
he's
hard.
training up the other people to become like two of those guys.
It's
or
it's
more.
hard. It's hard to imagine a scenario where you have like 9 old men again. Like they don't stick around that long because of the ramp up and ramp down cycle that everything goes through.
See a lot of studios just kind of like just dumping crews and dumping entire projects and not
it's
not planning long term for the business because everything is about make number go up for next quarter.
It's a cycle.
always just-
They hire you
yeah.
on as a contractor. You're only there for a short period of time, and then you're done. And then everybody goes away, and then they maybe ramp up with a whole new crew for the next thing. And
Sometimes like it doesn't matter how much work you get, you have to constantly prove yourself over and over again just to get the job. But sometimes like in the studio space, the only people who were paying attention to what I was doing was maybe like the line producer and the director. And then if they didn't like really remember you past that point, then the job didn't like go and get you more work. And you found yourself struggling to get the next thing. And this, cycling through 2, 3, 4 more jobs a year, it was rough. And eventually I was like, the people who were respecting my work and kept coming back to me for work were often clients of mine who sought me out, seeking individual custom work. Clearly, like they liked my work and what I had to offer. Maybe I need to start viewing my process as less like I'm doing the studio work and then in between I'm taking commissions and clients and stuff, and more view it as I'm taking commissions and clients, and then in between that sometimes I get studio work, because that was just the reality I was living.
Yeah, I think it's a microcosm version of like why this indie animation thing is happening right now, why there's such an indie animation boom is like this has been the experience of so many people. There's no avenue through which you can succeed and actually get a job that moves you up into,
There's no ladder anymore.
Bigger, yeah, there's no ladder. There's
just some
repeat
guys on a pair of
contract
stilts.
work.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it dries up for a long period and you're struggling and struggling and struggling, and then sometimes it's okay. But it's kind of a go nowhere thing right now. And so everybody's just like, well, I might as well just do my own thing that I've been wanting to do anyway. So
if I'm going to be poor, I might as well be poor and make art than just be poor and do nothing. At least like I can put like this energy and furor to some purpose, even if it's for nothing other than distraction. Like at least it's something. It's better than nothing.
Well, it's experience, and it is at least doing the art that you came in passionate about. And no one's giving you as much money as you deserve to do it and to apply your trade and to exercise all those like unique skills you have. But
and there's like, there's some romantic notions to indie stuff, but the reality of indie is that it's, a 3-year-old making like a flip book that's indie too.
I think
like,
it's
there's
great
no definition
that it's happening, but I think it's a symptom of a broader problem in just the way capitalism is doing us all dirty right now. So.
It's another in a long line of the cycle of boom and bust studios where you have an alignment of just bad decisions being made. And right now we have situations where the heads of these companies just don't care what we make. Like the fact that they could take a entire movie, and even if it's rated really well, and it doesn't matter who's attached, it doesn't matter the accolades, anything, and just dump it all in the toilet for a tax write-off. Like it doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter what the projects we're making, how they do. We get punished regardless. Like animation industry carried a lot of the entertainment industry in Hollywood.
Yeah, I know.
Years.
Pixar came out with the Inside Out 2, and then that was like the biggest grossing at the time, animated film ever.
And your show does poorly, you get fired.
And then everybody got laid off.
Yeah,
like
laid off anyway.
Like their reward.
You do amazing, you
off.
get laid off. There's no like correct thing where you can just do your job better and you'll keep.
Yeah, there's no like work hard, get good at what you do, and that will ensure or almost guarantee that you progress in your career any longer. And that seems really fundamentally broken about everything.
If all I'm doing is a job that makes number go up and I get penalized no matter what I'm delivering, like At what point do you break and go, fuck it? You obviously don't want me. If you're looking to outsource my work to not even just like very poorly paid people in like another country where you can like hide labor abuses, but a robot that does nothing more than spit out slop for folks. Like, if that's what you think my work looks like, then why am I doing it for you? Like, what am I doing here?
Why am I fighting to please you when you don't appreciate it in the first place and attempt to justify something?
Yeah, and the fact is that a lot of us feel that way eventually at some point, and that's what you're starting to kind of see, is that they start splintering off and they reform around each other and start building things from there, because I like working with the people I work with. If the guy upstairs doesn't respect that I'm the reason why he has his yacht, then I'm going to make the yacht happen for my friends, or healthcare, or, you know, a home and a family, or just something.
Probably won't be a yacht, maybe a rowboat with a
Yeah.
trolling motor on it, but
Yeah. We're going to go out on our pontoon and go fishing. That's a lot more fun than a yacht.
I know it's going to sound so basic, but what art is at the end of the day is communication between people. And it's that desire. Writing a story or making a comic or a show or a movie is all about, how do I talk to another person? And then it's translating that to, like, how do you build a community? How do you build a show? How do you build a company? It's all about, how do I effectively communicate to the person next to me?
Mm-hmm.
And
It has become a really good experience for writing Lackadaisy, that's for sure.
Yeah. I was going to
So,
say,
yeah.
you and I have made the comment to, I think we made it, we were giving a talk at like NYU like 4 days ago, and like literally we were thinking about this when talking to them, we were like, this distance is simultaneously the shortest distance you will ever have to travel and the furthest. This is getting idea from here to
Yep,
here.
for
so
sure.
hard.
Yeah.
Will
It's-
take the
it's
rest
a
of my
puzzle.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a puzzle, and it's only by the imperfect nature of that puzzle that you get a more interesting experience than if you were able to like just literally take word to picture and that's it. I mean,
yeah, I mean, if you could just spoon feed everything you were thinking and feeling and to other people, like, I think that would be a less interesting. It would be less messy, maybe, but
That's a pitch for a Black Mirror episode, frankly.
Yeah.
As far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned.
yeah.
yeah, it's like too literal. It's too perfectly, too streamlined. The messiness, I think, is where the art is, because you put something out there and it conjures different emotions and feelings in other people, and it like provokes other sensory recollections and things in other people in ways that you can't predict and you can't control. And then they like give us that feedback that to us is like, what? But that's what their experience was, and that's really cool that we've communicated something. Sometimes you don't always know quite what it is you have communicated, but like if part of it gets through, that's cool. And even if like you misfire and they don't get it at all, there's something.
In the attempt.
Yeah.
It's one reason I'm not threatened by machine learning, and like GenAI is not a threat to me and what I do, because it kind of misunderstands what the role of the artist is. It's not about how many fingers there are or how perfectly you sculpt the nose or whatever. I mean, like you look at any human art and there's going to be that kind of fucked up stuff all the time. So that's not the point. The trouble is it's never going to surprise you. In fact, it's designed to not surprise you. It's designed to deliver you exactly what the median version of that description is going to be. What is the understanding, according to this data set and how heavily weighted like this or that tag is, of what thing look like? So by its nature, it's going to bring up like the same things over and over again. It's going to be the perfect average of a thing, but art is not about the perfect average. Even if you were to summarize all my work and like make do a GenAI machine based off my work alone, and then you say, okay, print Fable work, it's still not me, and not because of some spiritual sense of what art is or not. It's just by virtue of the fact that each new piece I do is always a step beyond where I was before. And the same can't be said of a machine, because by its nature, it's a machine. It's supposed to have regular output. A human does not. You can't replace artists. You just can't, because you're talking about taking the human out of human work. And human is inherently the imperfection. And perfect artwork where everything is like perfectly rendered and everything is as expected is also extremely boring. For all the people out there who are getting despondent over like machines taking over art and, oh, what's the point of doing this or that? It's like, well, the point was you all along. Nobody else can make your art. Maybe you could sit there and be envious of someone else's work, but your work is yours, and all those imperfections are what makes it you. And you can work on those things. You could head in a direction. You can make choices that a machine cannot and will not. But those imperfections are what make it art.
I'd also say perfection doesn't exist anyway, because people like you cannot communicate anything perfectly no matter what. Even GenAI will not.
You become the 100% artist. Congratulations, you win.
Right.
But the thing is, and this is true, I think, like you can do your level best to be as clear and perfect, say the perfect thing, put it, make sure the machine makes it the perfect, and somebody will still misinterpret it, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Also, it's really funny.
Okay, so here's my final question. I think it's kind of tied into what was just said. I think that one of the things we're currently living through is the feeling that people have that, hey, there's a difference between this stuff that's just randomly generated or perhaps fed to me algorithmically and something that is made with intention. Mm-hmm. The person or people who made this had a goal in mind. They were aiming for something, and collectively together, everybody was kind of pointing in the same direction. And the thing that is always the hardest thing to do is to try and every day get up and be like, okay, what is our intention? What are we trying to do? What is that kind of thing? So I suppose as sort of a final question, I'm super curious to ask, what was your intention then? And how has that intention changed from then till now?
I've been saying that like I'm selfish in that I want to see more cool cartoons. So anything that helps forward that, because just having grown up and just having a really hard time as a kid, and cartoons inspired me. What got me really invested in this medium and making that like my mission was reading the making of books. The people who made the movies that I cared about, like who they were and what their thought process was when they were making these things and the stories involved. And I was like, these are really cool people. And I feel really alone out here reading these stories about people coming together and making these movies. And despite all the challenges, and including like how different they were able to make stuff that like really touched people's hearts and touched me. And I was like, I want to be a part of that. I think that this is a space where people who are like kind of unique and really dedicated just find a way to take who they are and really put it in their art. And it's the collaboration is what draws me to it. It's nice to have people know your name, but all it really means to me is like the ability to once again go out and do more cool projects with cool people. And I think it's way, way cooler and more awesome to just have known like so many people and get to see where they're going from there. I think if nothing else, even if everything comes collapsing down on my head, I can say there was a space for a time where these animators, like so young, had an island to stand on while like the tsunami was raging around them. The opportunity to just help each other, like help build that sense of community that I think so many people are missing. It's like, what is this feeling where all of us are so deeply depressed and anxious and scared? It's the worry that nobody's going to be there to back you up and that you can't help anybody either. But for all those like fellow millennials out there where you're struggling, like you're the adult now and you can be that person for somebody out there. Like you do have something to offer. And for the kids out there, you can make it. It's only by working together that we were really able to get this far. If this was just me and Tracy, it wouldn't have gotten this far.
As hard as it's been at points, it's been uniquely rewarding in so many other ways that it's been entirely worth it. Like no regrets at all about any of the extreme anxiety and stress and everything, and the exhaustion that is, and the expense.
And those experiences taught me that I can survive that stuff too.
Yeah, it's definitely made us stronger but maybe more importantly wiser about how to avoid those situations. Yeah. But yeah, just like generally being able to be part of a movement that maybe just makes things better for artists in general has been like the best part of it.
And if nothing else, if it's at least it's just like a brief respite in the middle of everything, like, good.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll last or like the indie movement as it were, like is gonna be but maybe it'll help just fix some things with the industry at some point, or it'll cause
know.
like a reconfiguration. A glitch has been doing amazing stuff, and it's kind of become a big prominent visage in the animation scene, and they're getting things done in ways that are different from how things have been done before. That's some pioneering stuff that I hope does change things for the better ultimately.
I'm super curious to ask, in the context of it's 2006, Tracy. You set out to draw this for the first time. What was your intention then, and how has that intention changed from then till now?
It was very solipsistic, I think, at the time. Like, I was working in the game industry. I've mentioned that numerous times now, I know, but it was such a very formative thing for me because I started out as a hands-on artist, and then I kind of moved into more of a art lead position, and I ended up just making art Bibles and delegating tasks and scheduling things and interviewing, employee potential candidates and things like that. And I wasn't doing so much of the hands-on work, and I was going a little nuts in that way because I didn't really want to ever be a manager, but I just kind of that fell in my lap. In the nighttime hours, I decided, well, I'm just gonna use that to do something creative that something needs to come out of my brain and through my hands onto the paper. So I had this lifelong obsession with animation. When I think of a story, it is animated in my head. But I couldn't do that on my own. There was no way I could conceive of to just animate. If I was going to animate something, it would have to be very short snippets. And I had this burgeoning world and all these characters talking in my head and stuff. And so I wanted to get that out as a story. And the way you can do that as a solo artist really most effectively, I feel, is comics. I didn't really know anything about comics at the time. I had drawn them for silly purposes here and there, but didn't really take it seriously. So that was my first serious foray into that. That's why I did it as a comic, even though it was an animation in my head. I just didn't have the resources or the knowledge or the funding or the software to make an animated thing. And then I got to a point with the comic where it was doing okay enough, and Patreon came out, and I was like, can I leave my job and make this my job? And I took that leap, and it worked out. And I think it's probably largely owing to Patreon being new, and people hadn't just tuned out mentions of, here's my Patreon.
It was novel at the time.
It has been a life-changing thing, and I'm so thankful to the patrons. But it was all about my own artistic fulfillment. And then it became this group thing. Like Fable mentioned, suddenly, was it 2019, somewhere around there? Yeah. You said something about needing to fix your computer and buy a tablet.
I was desperate. I was like, I'm doomed.
And I was like, there's crowdfunding options now. Toon Boom is available. There's ways to do the animation thing that I was thinking of doing. And maybe I'll just go out on a limb and reach out to Fable. And that exploded into this whole project where we then ran a Kickstarter where we started talking about it. We put that pitch together, and yeah, that's not going to get us anywhere. And it kind of became a challenge of well, we're going to make it ourselves then. And so we got Spike involved, and we ran that Kickstarter, and it did way better than we thought it would. And we're like, oh yeah, now we're going to do the thing. And as we started accumulating more and more team members and more people around it, it's become much more of a team thing. I want it to succeed not for my own gratification, and not because I'm a martyr or anything, but because the more important thing became the way that other artists can start their careers in this kind of horrible timeline that we find ourselves in. And it's a way for Fable to have this career that they deserve and this career trajectory, even
That's
though
so kind of you. I'm trying to earn the career, but I'm not. I don't want to think of myself as deserving the career.
But I've seen you and so many other artists get pushed by the wayside when you have spent you've dedicated yourselves to this craft. It means something to me on a level that I'm gonna actually get a little teary about. To be able to do a project that can mean advancement for other people, other artists. So yeah, it has changed from just being so totally selfish to being selfish, but also something bigger than me and my own ambitions. So yeah, that has that's been life changing.